Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Winter Meetings. I am your host, Stefan. With me is my partners in crime, Mr. Craig Newton, and the fabulous retired Yankees pitcher, Stefan Weaver, is with us as always, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, man, what a week of baseball it has been. We've seen some changes, some ups and some downs, and I can't wait to talk about it. First, of course, as we dive in, I am so excited to talk about the fact that Boston is 8-2 over their last 10 games.
And just swept a 4-game series from Seattle.
4-game series. Yesterday, actually all 3 days, they had come from behind wins.
4 days. 4 days.
Oh, 40, yeah. And they're on a 5-game winning streak.
And Story had 20 RBIs or something in the series?
It was 23, I think, was the number that they were talking on the postgame. He hit 3 home runs on Thursday. He had a grand slam on Friday, another one today. Franchi Cordero, of course, winning the game today with a walk-off grand slam, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Hansel Robles blew the save today.
Yeah, which is...
that's his second blown save of the year.
He's got such a great arm, but he's hit or miss. I think he fell in love with his changeup once and just throws it too much. He throws so hard, and his ball has good movement. He should just stick with the fastball.
I absolutely agree. And that's the hard thing is because you will see flashes of greatness from him,
right? And
he will be a shining piece in that dugout, and then in one stroke, it's over. Matt Barnes got the save yesterday.
That was nice to see.
Fantastic.
Brought him off the scrap heap.
Broken clock is right twice a day. It's going to happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get your input on this, Stefan, and Craig too. So, one of the ideas that's been thrown out is to put Garrett Whitlock into the closer role and get somebody else going in the rotation, which, because he would be a more bona fide closer. You could get more out of him and preserve his young arm more if you put him in that role for right now.
I agree. I think that would be a great idea. The only thing I would be careful of is moving him back and forth.
That's fair.
So if you're going to put him in a closer, you got to keep him in a closer.
Craig, what do you think?
I like that you're saving his arm for sure. You got to save that arm. That kid has got a great future.
He does.
Absolutely.
I love to stick it to the Yankees like that.
And in the not yesterday's game, but Thursday's game, he was the starting pitcher in that game and gave up 4 runs.
I know. I saw that.
And that was definitely his worst start, but he's a rookie. You're going to have games like that. Last week Eovaldi had that game where he, MLB record 5 runs in 1 inning. And then today he had a career best 11 strikeouts. So,
he's a veteran, so he definitely knows how to bounce back. And
especially Eovaldi too.
As a major league pitcher, you got to have a short memory. That's the most important thing. You can't forget you can't remember the previous day's outing, especially if it's bad.
Yeah.
Because it'll just eat you up.
Well, last year he didn't give it. This was last year today was when he gave up his first home run of the season. So, it's.
Yeah, I think he only gave up 15 all of last year.
Yeah.
He gave up 5 in 1 inning.
And that's what makes that such a remarkable feat when you look at it because of how consistent of a pitcher Eovaldi's been. And I think that the ability for Boston to transition Garrett into a closer role, I think for the year, which I think would be a great choice. You can look at maybe depending on what the market's like in the offseason, you can maybe look at using him more in a starter role next year, something like that. But I agree with you. If you put him as a closer, leave him there.
Right.
But Chris Sale will be back in probably about a month. I think he's supposed to start rehabbing any time.
I think Tanner Houck is also an interesting piece. He pitched amazing when he came in the other day. Four innings, no hits, pitched great.
He started before. It's and part of me wonders if the reason why Cora isn't keeping him in the bullpen is because he knows that he can get 4, 5, 6 innings out of him if he needs it.
Right.
Because you're not always going to have a day like today where Eovaldi went, what was it, 7-1, 7-2, something like that.
Yep.
It's and I did kind of feel bad for Eovaldi because of of Hansel blowing the save. Eovaldi did not get the win for today, but he threw a spectacular game.
Absolutely.
You're seeing a lot of these guys, and I think one of the reasons, it's not just about Trevor Story finding his bat. I think that another reason we're seeing Boston bounce back is you've got Arroyo putting in good at bats, even though he's just the DH, and JD Martinez, who is arguably one of Boston's big three right now, is sitting on the bench today because back soreness, which he's getting.
I read an article that said.
Go ahead.
I read an article that said they thought one of the main reasons that they're coming on is because of Kike Hernandez. He's been on base a lot. And you know what they say, as Kike goes, the Red Sox go.
And he had such a rough start too. I think going into today's game, he was only hitting like 188 over the year, but that doesn't reflect what he's been doing recently because he and the rest of the team are really starting to get going because we're kind of hit like today for Boston was that 40-game mark. I know the rest of the league is all kind of in that range. I know we're going to talk about standings later, but it's good to see that they're heating up. Do you think it's going to stay consistent?
I don't know if it's going to stay consistent, but I mean, even if it goes like win 8, lose 2, I think they'll get to the end of the year that way. I mean, they definitely have not been consistent, and their bullpen has not been consistent. Like one day, they'll have one guy who's a great star reliever, closes it out. Next day, he'll give up a game-winning home run. But Diekman has been great.
Yeah. Straussman's been really good, too. I think Straussman's who got the credit for the win yesterday.
I don't even know where they got some of these guys. No, Schrader, Danish.
Schrader was the one that got the win yesterday. Sorry.
Right.
But I don't know. It's, it's nice to feel the growth and the development of the Red Sox, even though we are also kind of seeing the Giants kind of struggle down that hill a little bit more. I'm being nice about it.
Terrible.
What do you think is causing the most of the struggles for the Giants right now?
Man, the pitching. I mean, they live and die by pitching, and Rodon just got slaughtered. I mean, that's very concerning. First time, okay, fine. The pitcher is telling him a bad outing, but I mean,
yeah, he was kind of carrying the first couple weeks.
He was. And the Padres, I mean, they still are missing Tatis.
Yeah, but they can still hit. I mean, Machado, as much as I dislike him, he's up at the top of the ranks.
Yeah. No, the Giants, I'm very concerned over that pitching. That just they live and die by pitching. That's just all there is to it.
Speaking of pitching, I can't believe Sergio Romo is still pitching.
Yeah,
he's only 31 years old.
Is he really?
Yeah, I thought he was like 39. I Googled him the other day, 31 years old. He's been with like 15 teams.
I don't think he's 31. I think he kind of fudged on his birth certificate.
He might have.
Let's see. If he's only 31, he's aging like a McDonald's milkshake.
Yeah.
And I mean that respectfully. Obviously,
or a Twinkie.
The guy is better at baseball than me. Even at his age, I get it. Could outpitch me any day of the week. But
he's got the same slider that he threw 20 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
It's a wipeout slider that keeps him employed.
Yep.
and it's one of those things, either you can get the timing of it or you might as well just sit back down.
Right.
Because he's going to eat you with it.
Yeah.
Every time.
But I don't think he's 31. I don't think he's 31.
That's funny. When I was playing in the minor leagues, there was a guy from the Dominican Republic. He was like 18 years old. The next year, he was like 19 years old. The next year, he was like 23 years old. The next year, he was like 17 years old. Kept fluctuating. It was funny.
He's not 31 because he's March 4th of 83. He's 30. He is 39.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
That's more like it.
Yeah, he is 39. Because I was like, there's no way. Yeah. But I mean, hey, Kimbrel, he is a closer. That's what keeps him employed. That stance, just,
Yep.
Might as well start doing the robot. I think after he retires from baseball, he can go play for the Bananas and do the robot on the mound, and then finally,
who's he pitching for now?
White Sox, isn't it?
I think didn't they trade him? They got rid of him and they kept Hendricks.
Maybe
Kimbrel was the Dodger, I thought.
Yeah, I think he's a Dodger.
Maybe he is with the Dodgers.
He's a Dodger.
I'm looking.
He is, yeah, because you know what? I remember being pumped about that because I thought that put a big boost to their bullpen when they picked him up in that trade. I remember.
Yeah, but they got rid of Kelly Jansen, right?
Yeah. I think Jensen's down in it's either Tampa Bay or
right. He's somewhere down there.
Yeah, somewhere down there, I think. And I mean, little bit of love for Jensen. He is a Red Sox alumni, but with the numbers he's putting up, I'm also glad that he's not in the Red Sox uniform. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about on Friday during the game between the Yankees and the White Sox, Josh Donaldson made a comment to Tim Anderson, called him Jackie. Little while later, Donaldson was up to bat. Yasmani Grandal said something to him as he was coming up the plate, and benches cleared. There weren't any punches thrown, but it was big brouhaha, and Tim Anderson.
They just all were asking each other where the best pizza place was.
I mean, they were talking fantasy football. They were probably just arguing over draft position is really all it was.
It's your usual baseball brawl.
I mean, just a bunch of chin wagging. Afterwards, it came out what Donaldson said. Donaldson did not deny it, said that he was saying it in reference to an interview that Anderson had back in 2019 where he felt like he was like Jackie Robinson, the fact that he was breaking barriers and bringing fun back into the game in Major League Baseball.
Are you kidding me? He compared himself to Jackie Robinson.
This is a legit 2019 SI interview.
Wow,
that happened. And
I guess
there was some collisions, but there was a collision at one point. I can't remember if it was either Friday or in the game Friday, Thursday, maybe a previous game that the Yankees and White Sox played recently. There was a little bit of a tenseness between them. They just needed to make out and get it over with, and they wouldn't. Just that will they, won't they thing. But he made that comment on Friday, and Tim Anderson took it as something that was racially motivated and disrespectful in that sense.
Bullshit.
Tony La Russa called the comment racist.
Oh, bullshit.
Well, I'm not a black man, so I have no idea. I can't even comment on that.
And that's the thing. And when Donaldson was interviewed about it after the game, what he said was, that wasn't what, I was saying it in reference to his 2000, when I called him Jackie, it was in reference to his 2019 Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. And he said it before. He said he'd said it before.
Yeah, he said that he's said it before in previous times they played each other in previous years. Yeah. And he was meaning it as more of like just a joking thing between them, trying to lighten it from the previous tension.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson took it as something more. And, in Donaldson was interviewed, he said that wasn't what I meant by it. If he took it as that, I'm legitimately sorry. I'll talk with him. That's not what I'm about. And, he offered that up. The league has said they are looking into the situation to decide what could happen. First and foremost, if Tim Anderson took it as racist, that the comment was racially charged, that's where the discussion needs to be focused. Now, when we look at Donaldson's behavior, I don't personally know of anything outside of like pushback between him and some other players because he's, kind of does have an asshole reputation in some ways. I don't know of anything where he's ever done anything that was specifically racially charged. So when I look at his explanation, which does check out, all I can think of is, you know what? Tim took it how it wasn't supposed to be. We can all talk about this and make sure that there's understandings that this, racial comment shouldn't happen. And that's not okay. But I would not be surprised to see the league try to make an example out of him and see him get a suspension.
Right.
I think it's going to happen.
Ridiculous.
Well, as a white man like Craig, I would think it's ridiculous. But, I'm not in the skin of a black man, so I have no idea what they feel.
I'm a white guy, but I'm also listening to an arrogant SOB and Tim Anderson comparing himself to the greatest player to ever hit the field in Major League Baseball and put up with so much crap for 4 years.
Right.
I have to agree with that. Because
I'd have to hear exactly what he said in 2019.
Right, and those were quotes that I as they've been talking about. Like I even watched on Sunday Night Baseball tonight because the Yankees are playing the Sox on Sunday Night Baseball tonight. They had a doubleheader. I know the Yankees won the first game. The White Sox are not doing that well going into that game. They had the last 20 up and down without getting a hit. And the White Sox are struggling a bit right now. They're trying to limp their way through because of some injuries until they get some key players back. And it's been. He openly said, I feel like, and this was direct quote from Tim Anderson, I feel like Jackie Robin says he's breaking barriers. And he was talking about the fun barrier. Bullshit. But my thing is,
did you say the fun barrier?
Yeah, that's the exact.
What does Tim Anderson do that's so much fun?
That's my first question. Exactly. And second, who is threatening Tim's life for trying to make baseball more fun?
Right.
Exactly.
Who's booing him off the field for trying to make baseball more fun?
He needs to shut the hell up.
You tell him, Craig.
I can't, again, just like Craig said, I'm not black. So it is not my place to say whether or not anything is racist.
Throughout the white black, I'm offended as a baseball fan. Highly offended as a baseball fan. As a lover of baseball history, I'm offended that Tim Anderson has the little tiny balls to interject himself into the greatness of Jackie Robinson. The hell
I see your point, but unfortunately these days everything is black and white.
The hell with that.
It's for me when I look at it, I cannot tell somebody when they're saying something was racist and it was about their race when I'm not that race. It's right. Not my position. I can listen to understand why, and I think we all should listen because the truth of the matter is there are people that will use that as a racial disrespect to black players. And there are not very many black players involved in Major League Baseball today. There are not a lot of many black players.
It used to be like 20-something%. Now it's like 8%.
Yeah.
And I think mostly Hispanic now, Latino.
Latino, and we're seeing where the black players are dwindling. I think we're seeing more from like Japan and China and Korea and stuff like that come over in that sense. Because it's still a diverse game in the sense that it's not just white people, but like there's been a lot of diversity in baseball for a long time. And like it was why like last year I had a big problem with. There was a comment that Stephen A. Smith on ESPN said last year where he said that he didn't think Shohei could be one of the faces of baseball because he doesn't speak English.
Right.
Really?
I don't think Stephen Smith speaks English.
And that's the thing, because how many times, especially over the last 20 years, have the players that were the face of baseball spoken to us as fans through the interpreters?
Right.
Like, and that was my biggest thing is I was like, look, I understand that there are problems in the world that we need to address. And I'm never going to deny that. But to think that baseball fans aren't going to like a player because he doesn't speak English, plenty of Latin players, Ichiro learned English as a third language, and he still doesn't speak it that well because
Well,
he spoke
they say he
Japanese.
does, but some people say he speaks it fluently.
I mean, he's probably a lot better now than he used to be. Back when he was playing, he didn't speak it as well because after when he first came to the States, he learned Spanish so he could trash talk to the Spanish players because there wasn't really a lot of trash
That's
talking
right. It's funny.
things in the Japanese language because of the way that it's formatted because that's not a thing in their culture. And so just
What? You mean trash talking is not a thing in their culture?
yeah, there are not words in the Japanese language for things that are considered trash talk.
I believe it.
At least that's what I've been led to understand. I would assume that there's probably slang terms and stuff that I would figure. I mean,
Well, they probably picked up some.
drift, so that's
They probably picked
close.
up some English terms.
Yeah, that's probably another thing. But you don't see with baseball, you haven't really seen a lot of problems with racial issues in a long time. There are some things that can be done better, but direct people just being outright racist to players and coaches and stuff like that, like fans, yes, but organizations, like and players to each other, no.
Well, I have a theory about that, which I've been thinking about for a couple of years. Because when I was in the minors, you play with guys from upstate New York. You play from farmers and cornfields in Iowa. You play with guys from ghettos in San Bernardino. You play with all types of guys, and you just get along with them. So once you see that there's not much difference, there's not much racism among the players. I mean, I'm sure there's your occasional guy from Alabama who still has racist feelings, but you don't really see it that much.
And I think that's just the way it is in sports for the most part in general. Because, as a team, like, we're all just trying to win.
Right.
And I can't be worried about the color of skin of my teammate. I've got to be worried about how well they play. That's the part that matters. Because that's going to dictate whether or not we win, not whether they're black or white or, yellow.
And that's going to dictate how long my career is.
Exactly. Because you can be the best player on the worst team and nobody's going to care. Matt Stafford. He was actually putting up Hall of Fame numbers in Detroit despite their horrible records. Gets to LA, wins the Super Bowl, and everyone's like, oh yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Famer now. He was a Hall of Famer then.
Well, I always thought the same about John Elway. He was considered a mediocre quarterback until he won those couple Super Bowls. Now all of a sudden he's the greatest quarterback ever.
Well, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo has 2-3 Super Bowl titles?
Yeah.
Because he sat on the bench while Tom Brady won.
We are fortunate that we still have Rachel Robinson with us, Jackie Robinson's widow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the only person that can lend credibility to this argument is Rachel Robinson, and I'll be very curious if she's going to say anything about this. And what she says, I will respect her words. I will listen to what she has to say. And I mean, she knew her husband better than anybody. She knew the trials he went through.
Well, she went through them with him, right?
Yeah.
What?
She went through them with him.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, a lot of times her safety was in jeopardy because of what he was doing.
Exactly. And if I'm Rachel Robinson, I'm hardly offended that this kid Anderson would compare himself to Jackie Robinson.
And honestly, I want to separate the issues, and I'm going to do that intentionally because of the time and the issues between Donaldson and Tim Anderson. I can understand why Tim Anderson has a quick fuse on that with him, and it just might be because of intention where that's coming from. So I want to pull that part aside. And when we look at where the comment comes from, according to Donaldson, that this Sports Illustrated interview back in 2019. And what I'm going to do is once we're done with the show tonight, I will find that article and I will share it in the comments of this episode so that anybody can come back and read it. I will share it on YouTube as well as on the Facebook page post for the video. So anybody can take a look at that article and review the comments so you can think about this more for yourself, because this is discourse. We're not saying we're right, he's wrong, who's wrong, what. This is discourse. And I love discourse. And Kali, thank you so much for your comment. Please, and any feedback that you have in your opinion, please leave in the comments when you get a chance to watch everything, because we can always learn. But the comment in comparing himself to Jackie Robinson, like, I wish I would have known about that at that time, because I would have ripped that apart. That is, I personally feel like that's disrespectful for what Jackie did for this game. And in the things that Jackie went through, in the fighting that he had to do just to be able to play. You know, the movie 42 is a fantastic movie. Don't get me wrong. Chadwick Boseman, Lucas Black is in that movie. Absolutely love Lucas Black as an actor. He's a talented young man. That doesn't do it justice.
No.
Everything that he went through. And it's a very serious thing that I don't think we talk deep enough about. So when you see this kind of a comment, I get that Tim Anderson's black. And so by definition, he does somewhat have more credibility to try and cry that. But I still think it was out of line.
Yeah. With my upsetness is not as a white man against a black player. My upsetness is a baseball fan who reveres Jackie Robinson.
Right.
That's my upsetness. You know, Tim Anderson, good ball player, never be as good as Jackie Robinson.
No.
Not in the same room. You know, as a baseball fan, as a baseball writer, I'm offended. Not as a white man, but as a baseball writer fan.
Right. On the same note, how do you guys feel about Mariano Rivera not giving up 42, continuing to wear it?
That's fine. That's fine.
Really?
Yeah. He got that jersey. Yeah. And they're told, you know, that when they leave, you know, that they'll be gone. But now he's out of baseball. That number should be that he's done with baseball. That number should go back to being retired for Jackie Robinson.
Definitely.
Yeah. But I had no problem when he wore it while he was playing. But now, as he's retired, yeah, he's done. You know, no, sorry, Mario. That number belongs to Jackie Robinson family.
I do have a problem with his political beliefs, but that's another story.
Yeah.
That's a completely different scenario. That's not our show. But
Different podcast.
But honestly, like with Rivera and wearing 42, the way that I look at that is he did not, while playing, political beliefs aside, on the field, he did not disrespect that number and the person who wore it to the highest degree in any way. Like, and so there are some players, like if it was some person that had just been called up that nobody had heard of, weren't sure how they were going to do, you know, bad person, maybe something like that. Yeah, kind of crappy. But Rivera, he played well in that number. He
earned it. He definitely earned it.
Yeah, all the way to Hall of Fame. Yeah. Yeah.
But
now it's time to give it up.
It's the one thing that I don't want to see happen with this Donaldson thing is I don't want people to, unless there's evidence to show that it was legitimately meant as a full racial attack, I don't want people to continue this thing where you act like it was something more than it was.
Right.
There's always room for us to grow and learn things that shouldn't be said and are disrespectful that we weren't aware of. We can all learn from those things, and it's our responsibility as people when we get called out for something that we say that we shouldn't have, we learn from it.
When I hear stuff like this, I pay attention to the quote unquote off the record testimonies that come in from players. Oh yeah, he was like that. You know, it's like, have you heard anything about that about Josh Donaldson? I haven't.
I haven't either.
The only comments on it I've seen have been from Yankees players saying he's not that kind of guy. He wasn't meaning it like that. He told us to context where the comment came from, so we left it at that. And then, of course, you've got the White Sox that are backing their guy, saying they felt like it was more. And so at this point, it feels like it's just a headbutting thing that's going to cause drama between the two things.
Right. I think eventually it'll become a non-issue.
It will, but I do believe Donaldson will get a game or two at least. I think it's going to happen.
He shouldn't.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it unless there's more evidence that it meant something more.
Right.
That's the key. All the information, I think we take it as a learning moment. Get rid of the joke. You get pulled up into HR. Hey, you made this joke. Didn't mean it that way. Yeah, we still got to write you up. Don't say it again.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Leave it at that. But I just don't want it to become something more.
Right. Like I said, no one has come forward and saying, "Oh yeah, he's that guy. He's a racist." No one has said that at all.
Can you imagine how many times Ty Cobb would be written up today?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Ty Cobb, Nolan Ryan would get into it, and Chipper Jones would as well.
Kurt
Those
Schilling?
two guys have some mouths yet. Kurt Schilling, yeah. Okay, no, shit. Thought I saw something on my notes for a second in my monitor. All right, so this was something that I just found, or that Stefan just brought up, and the article that I'm looking at is from Penn Live, but it has been discussed on a few different national pages. 6 former Phillies have died of brain cancer. There's a doctor with knowledge of the situation that says it's a cluster and it needs to be examined. When news broke that Phillies pitcher Dave West's death happened, it wasn't just sad. It was starting to look like a trend because West, along with, I want to make sure I get the names all right, Ken Brett in 2003, Tug McGraw, Tim McGraw's father in 2004, Johnny Oates in 2004, John Vukovic in 2007, Darren Dalton in 2017, have all died of brain cancer.
And don't forget, John Kruk had testicular cancer. He didn't die. He got it.
And you said there were some theories on what was causing it, Stefan. What did you see?
I saw the guy bring up, 1, the AstroTurf, and 2, the radar gun, because it was mostly pitchers and catchers. So they thought maybe the radar gun was causing some of it.
Okay. My question would, my curiosity would be, what about, so we see a lot of Philly players. What about other players that were in the Phillies division? Are we seeing clusters in any of those groups? Because they would have been in those positions as well.
Yeah,
how many others that have been in that much? Yeah. How many others of those are we seeing? Is there any elevation of those statistics? Because statistically, they're saying it's like 4 times what it should be for the cluster,
right,
for the size statistically. So it's defined as a cluster. Okay. But there should still be, even if it's because it's not as much, statistically, there should still be some acceleration in some of these other, especially I would think of divisional rivals that are coming in, because they're at least going to be the ones that would be the next step down in much.
Or even fans that go to every game.
Yeah. Like, what about in Philly as a whole? Are we seeing any of these in that area as a whole, especially among baseball fans? It's an interesting topic, but it honestly, just the topic, it almost sparks more questions than answers. What do you think, Craig?
I see a 50 minutes program down the road.
You know who we need to call? I just figured it out.
Very sad and very intriguing.
We need to call Aaron Brockovich.
We need to call Ghostbusters.
No, so true story. Okay, so the movie Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah, I love the movie.
The actual attorney group came to the area in Northwest Missouri where I had lived in high school because there was such a high rate of cancer in the area, especially specific types of cancer, where they actually they were checking to see if it was something that was in the water,
Right.
in the soil, because it's a heavy farm area, so you see a lot of pesticides and stuff like that. Because they were trying to see what it was and see if there was anything that they could connect to, because there was such a high concentration of cancer in the area. I lost my grandmother to cancer in that area. And my grandfather, who was in that area, I ended up losing him of cancer. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of cancer deaths over I think a 10 or 15 year period where they said it was 8 to 10 times what it should be. And so they looked into it. And I guess my mom at one point talked to somebody with their team because she was my grandmother's caretaker until she had passed. And so she had kind of discussed with them on her case and all of that as they were researching. Yeah, it was just interesting. But maybe they just need to call Aaron Brockovich. Maybe that's what it is. Well,
I always had a problem with Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generation. It's the generation that gave us all cancer.
Fair.
Lead pipes, lead jungle gyms, asbestos. They didn't care.
Yeah, asbestos is a great product. It won't do anything wrong.
Right.
Why is everybody dying of cancer? I don't understand. Yeah, it'll be great to mine coal with people. That's not going to be bad. Why is everybody dying of the black lung? What's wrong? It's not like that wasn't a consistent problem for 100 years before they finally realized it. All right, so I know you're going to be dipping out in a little bit, Stefan. Mm-hmm. We're going to start talking about standings over the 40 game mark. So we'll go ahead and dive into the American League East first, because your former team, the Yankees, are still pretty much leading the charge, not just in the AL East, but in all of baseball.
Yeah, they have the best record in baseball, I think.
Yeah, last I knew they did. I'm actually pulling them back up right now. They're at 29-11.
725.
15-5 at home, 14-6 away. Run differentials at plus 72. 7-3 over their last 10. Definitely, and Judge and Stanton are absolutely raking right now.
Well, Stanton, when he hits a ball solid, it's as hard as I've ever seen a ball hit.
So much power behind him.
I would hate to have a line drive hit back at me as a pitcher. I mean, if I was a third baseman, I'd be back on the grass.
Unless the play for some reason is pulling it in slow, you kind of have to. It just so much heat. Hey, what's up, Will? This is Will Morgan. He hosts the Sports Report that I am on Monday nights. And he's a Braves fan, unfortunately. Poor guy.
We'll forgive him that.
But yeah, it's the Yankees are doing well, and that's definitely good. I think the AL East, we're going to start to see some shifting, not just because Boston is moving up, but the other thing that we're seeing is the Rays and the Blue Jays over their last 10 really have not been as spectacular as you would expect.
Right.
The Rays are 6-4 their last 10. The Jays are 5-5. They're both over 500, but at
the Red Sox are only 5 behind Toronto and 7 behind Tampa Bay, but still 10.5 behind the Yankees. Yeah, the main thing I think when you're behind is you got to start knocking off some teams in front of you. You got to start jumping ahead because it's tough.
Those division games are going to be crucial.
Yeah, it's tough to jump over 2 really good teams.
And I think optimistically, most of us that are Sox fans really just want to see Boston get to a wild card seed. Right. But they kind of have to transition up. The Twins are actually they're leading the AL Central right now at 25-16. So just 61%. There are 4.5 games ahead of the White Sox, who are definitely underperforming. Run differential.
Guys, I got to run.
3-1. All right, you have a good one.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
See you next week, Stefan.
Actually, no, I won't see you next week.
Oh, no, you won't. Okay. See you week after.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
But the Twins are definitely one of the teams that have been surprising as far as the season has been, because they made some moves in free agency and in the offseason for what they could for that limited time. But, really the biggest deal was the fact that they got, the fact that they just didn't really do much else. And then they're 4.5 up on the White Sox, who are White Sox are usually a lock to win that division right now with the way everybody else is playing.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, the Twins got Korea back. That's big. That's really big. So
it's, I want to see. I wish the Royals were doing better, but they're 14-26. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They're really not doing very well. They just made some coaching changes, so we'll see what change. As far as like pitching and hitting coaches, so we'll see what happens there. Astros probably one of the second or third best team in baseball right now themselves, because they are, they've been doing really, really well. They're 27-15.
Nobody
6-4 of the last 10. They've got a run difference right now plus 47. That's why they're winning games.
Nobody cares.
As we move into the National League, the Mets have a solid 8-game lead on the National League East. They are only 6-4 out of their last 10, but they're 28-15 right now. So,
they're not going to hold on to that.
I don't know, because if you look at I don't know, man. The Braves are really going to have to get going if they want to make some progress. And because right now, well, yeah, for now the Mets are leading the division. The Braves are only 5-5 out of the last 10. They did not continue what they started last year. And I know some of that is the loss of Freddie Freeman, but the loss of Freddie Freeman is a difficult thing for them, but it was an okay replacement. They shouldn't be struggling as much as they are right now. But it's testament to how hard it is to repeat. They're -11 for a run differential for the year. And when you're not scoring points, it's hard to win games. They're just that's what it is. I mean, then you've got, I think probably the National League Central and the National League West are the divisions that are probably the closest right now, outside of, well, the AL West is the Astros and the Angels are pretty close. They're only a game and a half apart. But the Central, the Brewers are only 3 games up on the division, 6-4 in their last 10. They're 26-15. The Cardinals are right behind them at 23-18, only 3 games back. And they actually have a larger run differential at plus 45 over Brewers at plus 32. Like, they're scoring.
Yeah.
You gotta score runs to win games. The Mets production has been up and down. Will, you're right, but at least you got Pete Alonso that's finally just doing everything for you. And then we get down to the the National League West. Fortunately for you, your Giants are only 5 games back.
Look at the time. Look at the time. I got to go.
But the thing of it is I think that division is a lot more competitive than some people might think. I mean, yes, the Padres are only a half game back from the Dodgers, but the Giants are only 4.5 games back on the Padres.
Yeah.
That I think that division can change quicker than any of the others. But
I think the Giants are going to have to make some changes at catcher. I mean, Joey Bart is just not – the offense just isn't there. And I'm really bummed because I really was hoping he'd have a great career with the Giants. But it would not surprise me if they make a package deal and trade him at the deadline.
Any idea who you think they might try to grab?
No. Not right now.
It's tough.
This has to perform, and they've got really good pitching.
I think that there is. I think this trade deadline is going to be interesting because there's a few teams right now across the league that are a piece or two away from taking over.
Yep.
And honestly, I'm gonna throw this out here. The Dodgers may be one of those teams that makes some changes.
Not at all.
And I think that we're going to see some teams trying to grab a piece or two from the Dodgers to try and beef up.
Yep.
And I would not be surprised to see Freddie Freeman as one of those pieces that ends up getting traded.
Oh, I'd be really surprised. Wow.
Simply because there's enough value in his contract that somebody could utilize him as a franchise piece as they're trying to stay competitive over the next few years.
Yeah.
Like I would not like the Yankees. I could see the Yankees grabbing him. Or Boston. Or I don't know. A couple of teams that I think because I mean, first base is a tricky position to staff, but you also have to look at the fact that with the fact that it looks like next season is when the shift is going to be banned. Having somebody that's a little bit more proficient in that spot and a little bit more mobile is going to be key. So instead of teams trading for somebody that's on the last part of his contract and really getting more of a rental than a buy, somebody might try to pick up the check.
Well, the Dodgers could definitely afford it. I mean, they've got a fantastic, as much as they hate to admit this, they have a fantastic farm system.
Yeah.
They're just next man up. I mean,
They've got one of the best farm systems in baseball, and they've also got very deep pockets. So they don't need to do it, but if somebody makes it worth their time enough, they might.
Yeah.
Because Freddie didn't want to go to LA. And I wonder if that's impacting the environment that he has in the clubhouse. Because I know he's a good guy, and I'm sure he probably gets comfortable in the environment. But when you work a job, you've been there for a while, you want to be in a different department, but you're in a certain department because you're good at it, even though you don't want to be there. People can tell, like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing and he's good, but he doesn't want to be here. And I think that could have an impact on why. And again, it's not to disrespect him. Like, he expected he was going to stay in Atlanta. The Dodgers was an afterthought. Unless he likes LA, and is like, yeah, no, I'm good. Because they didn't put a no trade in his. I don't think they put a no trade in his contract.
Well, I know the Giants went after him hard too, but I mean, I'm glad they didn't get him because next year, either Soto or the Yankees outfielder. Give me the name.
Judge.
Judge. One of those will be wearing a Giants uniform next year.
One
of them will.
I would say it's probably going to be Judge.
Yeah.
Because I've heard some conversations around Boston trying to grab Soto. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. But at the same time, I mean, I want the W. I don't care either way, as long as they win.
Yeah.
But I think but I think you're right. I think we're going to see Soto or Judge. I think they're going to make a splash. The Giants will next year because you can tell that they're trying to be competitive. They're not one of these. Excuse me. They're not one of these organizations like the Rockies, the D-backs. Yes, the D-backs are doing better. They've actually been starting to move in the right direction over the last couple of weeks. But there are teams that are clearly not worried about being competitive.
Right.
And the Giants are not one of those teams. They're trying to get back into it.
And they have a boatload of money next year that they're going to be able to throw at either Judge or at Soto. A boatload.
They should too. Somebody and that's the thing is I think the Yankees are going to be a little nervous about doing a $300 million plus deal for him because that's what he wants and he's going to get it.
Yeah, he's worth it too.
And he's worth it, but the Yankees have been making some strange moves, and they're not just dropping money to pay players what they deserve anymore. And then they complain why they're not winning World Series anymore. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think a lot of that's if the Yankees if the Yankees do sign Judge, I could see Soto down in San Francisco.
Yeah,
because they would pay him that. They would pay him. That would probably that's probably their second push. Everybody's first push is going to that could use Judge is going to be pushing for Judge.
I push harder for Soto. I would push harder for him.
You get more speed out of Soto. You get more offensive speed out of Soto, but I think with Judge, especially with some of the smaller National League parks, I think you get more run production out of him, and he covers that much more space in the outfield.
Yeah.
But also now, what part of the CBA is there's going to be more balanced schedule. Every team plays each other starting next year.
Yep.
And I think that's why we're going to start to see some big shifts in the offseason because you're not just, grabbing guys because you're going to need them. You're not just focused on, hey, this guy hits well in National League parks. That's all we see except for 10 games a year, so that's who I want. No, Now you have to plan for 45 games, basically,
yep,
of interleague play.
That's been a lot of fun.
I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I think it's going to make some divisions a lot more competitive.
Oh yeah.
And depending on some moves that are made, like I could really see next year, like especially your division with the National League West, between that competition that was going on last year for most of the year between the three until it just dropped to being between the Dodgers and the Giants. The Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. When you add in those interleague games, I think they become. I think we see some more win production out of those teams, and I think that brings brings it closer. I think there are some divisions that are going to suffer as a result, like the National League East and the American League Central. I think they're going to see lower records because they're going to get exposed to a lot more big market teams and other teams that have built competitive lineups instead of we're always in a rebuilding year.
Right, but I'm thinking of, that's a very good point. I'm thinking because there's going to be more teams the Giants, Dodgers are playing, when they get together or when the Yankees and Red Sox get together, those games are going to have more emphasis than they've ever had before because you're only going to get so many chances to go face-to-face with each other.
Because because theoretically you're losing at least a couple division series
Yeah.
Maybe even a division series per team in your division to make up for that extra interleague play that you're getting.
And that's huge.
And so, yeah, that does make division games more impactful next year. That's I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
And I know I kind of briefly touched on it a few minutes ago, but the Diamondbacks, while they are 3 of their last 10, they have started to tip back into a decent direction. They do have a better record than the Red Sox right now, painfully enough. 21-22. They're just 1 game under 500. And, you know, we're a quarter of the way through the year. And we are starting to, you know, basically, every team's pretty much gone through 40 games or more. And you're starting to see the groove that some of these teams typically find a little earlier in the year. Do you think the shortened spring training is impacting some of these teams starting slowly?
Absolutely. It's impacted teams, especially as far as injury-wise. No question. A shorter spring training has affected the pitching injuries.
There's been a lot more pitching injuries this year.
There sure have. Yeah, no question on that. But yeah, the shorter spring training definitely impacts this season.
And I think that one of the things that frustrates me about all these pitching injuries is these pitching injuries are legitimately the league's fault.
Yeah, well said.
And the reason that I say that, and I want people to understand why I'm saying that, because the lockout was instituted by the league. The players were willing to play through the entire year, and it said they would play through the entire season, including playoffs, on the deal that was previous, so that everybody had time to negotiate a proper deal that was beneficial to both sides. And the league said no and locked out the players.
Yep.
Because of and then the league took 43 days before they made their first offer. The lockout was for the protection of baseball, but I have bills that are less past due than how long it took for the league to make their first offer to these players.
Yep. And what the listeners probably may not know is during the lockout, the players are not allowed to attend the facilities to train. The players that are out injured or had surgeries can't go see the team doctors. They can't go see the team trainers. During the off season, the team trainers meet with each of the players, and they give them a packet that they take back home to where they're at. That gives them their entire workout menu for the off season.
Yeah.
As far as diet, as far as the workouts they're going to be doing, lifting weights, whatever. None of that happened because the players were not allowed to make contact with trainers, with coaching staff, with the team doctors. Just absolutely terrible for the players. And now we the fans are paying that price.
Exactly. And when you look at, one of the things that there's some of the listeners you may not realize, in a traditional year with spring training, pitchers and catchers typically report the week after Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And our first exhibition spring training games, not even the real spring training games, or the fake spring training games, if that makes any sense, they start last week of March, they start last week of February, first week of March. But usually the actual spring training games and stuff, the ramp ups, usually start that first, second week of March is when things really get going. And the main reason is you've got to give pitchers time to get their arms ramped up. And pitchers typically are already doing things to do that before they report in February. But they were unable to do that because you don't want to overdo it and tax your arm and cause problems. So they didn't get to start that ramp up, and you had, 3 days between when the deal was signed and players had to report?
Yes.
These players were sold short by the league, and so these injuries are on Rob Manfred.
Yes, Absolutely. Well said. He owns them.
And I think that especially the pitchers, any of these injuries that are because of the fact that they didn't get the normal ramp-up time, all of these players should be holding Manfred accountable for this choice.
Yep. Well said.
And holding these owners that delayed the process accountable for this choice.
Yeah. I feel really bad for the coaches because I know, the fans think, okay, the season's over, baseball's over for 5 months. Not for Major League coaches. The coaches travel to the homes of the players, and they sit down with them and go, okay, well, here's the workout plan we're putting up for you, or we're sending a player to back to play in the Republic, Winter League ball, whatever and stuff. The coaches work year round in Major League Baseball. They work year round, and they had no contact, no phone calls, no Zoom calls, nothing with their pitchers or their catchers for the entire time.
I'm legitimately surprised that we didn't have more players that we didn't find out got injured because of the no team contact rule.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that there wasn't. Don't get me wrong, but I am legitimately surprised that it was not a more that it was not a bigger list of players that showed up injured.
I think it goes to the professionalism of the players because back in the day, as I put my cane next to my hip. Back in the day,
back in my day,
off-season players didn't work out. They didn't get they used off-season to play golf or to get second jobs, but because the contracts are so big, that's a full-time job for players to stay healthy. If they don't stay healthy, if they don't stay ready to go to spring training, someone else is going to take their job, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars that they don't want to lose. So on their own, these players most of them take care of themselves, and they have their routines. They did on their own.
Trevor Bauer. There's that whole situation that's going on to Trevor Bauer in the league, and we're going to wait to report on everything until we have more information because that's a very volatile topic. But we are going to talk about it at some point once the dust settles with that when we can. But Trevor Bauer, even though he hasn't played in over a year now, and it looks like he may not play for another year, he's still working out. Like if you check him out on Instagram, he posts videos of him throwing bullpen sessions and sessions in like indoors at training facilities. He's staying ready because he knows if he doesn't, he's not going to get the chance to do it again. And I think he does legitimately want to play ball. All of the other stuff aside, like any of these guys that do this, if you're a professional athlete, you want to compete. You want to play that game. And so I think that's part of it. It's just he still wants to play. I think his relationship with the Dodgers is severed completely.
Oh, yeah.
I think if and when he comes back to baseball, it won't be in a Dodgers uniform. But he's staying ready.
I don't think it'll be Major League Baseball. I don't. I think his option will be Japan. The Korean or Japanese leagues.
I don't know. I think for him, I think the reason that we might see him because ultimately, professional sports is not a vessel of morality. That's we all need to accept that. And these athletes are all human. I'm not condoning anything that Trevor Bauer is accused of, but he also the accusations that he faced, each individually, each of the accusers and each of the accusations, the violence, especially the one that broke the allegations against him in the first place, all got examined, and all of the evidence against him got examined by grand juries. And he was not charged. And so I'm not trusting him with any of my female friends because I'm a firm believer that where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's probably some stuff that wasn't right, even if it wasn't everything he was accused of. But from a professional standpoint, if Deshaun Watson can get signed by a team and picked up, and teams are going to fight for him, and they're going to go as far as giving him a fully guaranteed contract, something that was unheard of in the NFL, Trevor Bauer will pitch again somewhere. Someone will do it. Now, it may be a small market team like the Mariners, probably not the Rays, the Orioles, the D-backs, the Rockies, the A's, something like that, because it will sell tickets. Somebody, and the fact that he can somewhat pitch, he's not bad. He'll pitch again.
Every clubhouse, every player is a father, a husband, a brother, of a daughter, a sister,
Mm-hmm.
a wife, or a mother. That's all I got to say.
No, I'm, again, not condoning anything that he's accused of, and I, where there's smoke, there's fire. But I've also been watching professional sports for most of my life in some form. And when you look at the grand scope of what Bauer was accused of, he'll be back. Ed Reed literally killed somebody. Wasn't charged. Nobody cared. Why? Because he could play. I'm not saying it's right, because it's not. But it's true.
Well, we'll find out in 2 years.
We'll see. I mean, the hearing for Bauer with the MLB and the appeal is going to be next week. I think that the MLB needs to develop some consistency with punishments across the board, because you have Matt Harvey, who was literally dealing drugs, admitted it. The only reason he's not facing jail time is because he was testifying against the guy that is accused of selling Tyler Skaggs the drugs that actually killed him.
Yeah.
He got a 60-day ban.
He should ban from baseball permanently, forever.
Absolutely. But you're going to tell me that somebody who did that only gets 60 days, but we're going to give Trevor Bauer a full season. There's such, and this is the problem, and this is one of the things that kills fans' interest in any professional sport, because it's not just the MLB that does this. The NFL does it. The NBA does it too.
Yeah.
So let me clarify for anybody that wants to throw that out there. It's not just the MLB, and I know that, but they need to develop more consistency when it comes to these punishments.
Agree.
Because personally, I can see the full season suspension for Bauer and the potential that he may not pitch again. But how are we only going to give Matt Harvey 60 games when he was literally dealing drugs and selling pain pills in the clubhouse?
Yeah.
That is horrible. He contributed to his actions contributed to the death of a young pitching star.
Yes.
60 games?
Yeah. Should be 60 years.
Pete Rose gambles and gets completely banned.
Because that's in the rule.
Because that's in the rules. Right. Gets made an example of. But A-Rod caught using steroids. Twice. The second time, the cover-up scheme that was used to cover up that he was juicing cost him more a month than I make in a year. And he's allowed around the game and will get into the Hall of Fame first or second ballot. Guaranteed.
No.
You don't think it'll happen? You think it'll be longer?
Not first, not second, not for a long time, no. He can do all the assassin he wants on Fox and make it, and kiss babies and shake hands and all that stuff. He's a twice convicted steroid user. Bonds convicted 0 times. Still not in the Hall of Fame. But twice for A-Rod. Yeah, he won't see the Hall of Fame for a long time.
You see, but here's the thing. David Ortiz got in his first ballot despite there being connection. I know there was nothing that was actually proven, but he admitted it in a survey that he had done PDs. Mm-hmm. And he was primarily a DH.
Mm-hmm.
But he gets, but he still gets first ballot. 5 years ago, we were debating whether or not a DH actually deserves, somebody who's primarily a DH actually deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
And he's not even the 6th best player all time.
He's not.
Put Ortiz and Bonds in the same era. He's not even the 6th best player, and he goes in the Hall of Fame. Ridiculous.
I would take Bonds over Ortiz at the plate in their primes combined. I'm still taking Bonds.
Yep.
And I love David Ortiz is one of my favorite Red Sox players ever. I'm still taking Bonds.
Yeah.
That dude was putting up Hall of Fame results. Hall of Fame results before it was ever accused that he had used PEDs.
Yep.
As a reminder for those of you that may not know, in '92 he signed the largest single-year contract in baseball history at $4.25 million.
Thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people they just gloss over the fact that Bonds already had the numbers for the Hall of Fame way before he retired and way before he got involved with PDs, allegedly.
If you look at his numbers before 96, when they say 95 back to the start of his professional career, he's still a Hall of Famer.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why I was so pissed that he didn't get in. And the veterans, this is one of the years that the Veterans Committee meets. I would not be surprised to see them flip that, because there's a lot of veterans that support him. I think he's got the support to get it.
He's going to have the support of the Golden Age Committee meets every 4 years, and they're meeting. It was you that said that. Okay. They're meeting in November, and that all their job is they look at peer to peer for the era that those players played in, and that's all they look at. Is this person a Hall of Famer? Did they have the numbers for yes or no? Boom. He'll be in. He'll in November. We're going to hear that Bonds, or shortly after November, we're going to hear that Bonds is going to the Hall of Fame.
And Clemens, he'll get it too.
And Clemens too, yes.
I would say. Wait, does Manny still have years left on the ballot, or was this his last year too?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't.
Because I think that's going to be another one, because otherwise, and that's one of the ones that I can't remember, because I know he hasn't gotten in yet. And he was on the ballot this year, but I can't remember.
That's a great question.
But if he's no longer eligible, if he's no longer going to be on the primary ballot, I think Manny might see it too.
Yeah.
Getting
back to
A-Rod. You think they give it to Schilling?
Ooh, wow. Schilling's a whole different ballgame, just because of. I know we don't get political on here, but you can't ignore his political views that have alienated so many people in baseball alone.
Yeah.
Not to mention his own teams.
Yeah.
Was he a great player? Yes, he was a great pitcher. Was he a clutch pitcher in the playoff? Yes, he was. Is he Hall of Fame? He has the numbers, I think.
So, yeah, and that's for me. That's really what I look at, because when I look at the Hall of Fame stuff, outside of like stuff where somebody is out murderer, doing for prison time, stuff like that, killed their wife, killed their kids, whatever. When you're looking at that Hall of Fame stuff, the baseball writers, they can look at that other stuff. I get that. That's kind of their job. They have to write about it. They probably get sick of the same shit, different day stuff that they have to deal with some of those guys, so I get it. But on the Golden Age, like on the field,
peer to peer,
he's a
Hall of Famer.
He is.
Yeah.
I think they might make him wait it out.
Well, he didn't help himself by saying he didn't care if he ever got in the Hall of Fame. That to him was a puppet show, and he didn't really care.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that hurts the case a little bit. I can agree with that wholeheartedly. But I also think that at some point, I mean, when you look at statistics, he has the numbers. He really does.
Yeah, he does.
But the fact that he would just shut up.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, kind of like, you know, there's sometimes it's like, you know, like I remember when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was in love with Britney Spears. Blondes have always been my weakness. Like that is a true admission of myself. That's why I've dated 11 different chicks named Ashley. Because if you see a blonde, you can call her Ashley, and there's an 80% chance it's correct. But Britney, like I was in love with Britney Spears, but her actual, like, because they had taught her, she actually went through vocal classes to have that almost like baby-esque voice. It kind of killed it for me. And so I, mute. Oh, Britney Spears is much more attractive now. Mute. Oh, yeah, Kurt Schilling's a much better player now. I mean, it's kind of the Britney Spears effect, you know what I mean?
I'm trying to follow you, but I think the bus went right off the track.
Okay. All right. So, okay, help me out. I will adjust the explanation.
Okay.
So I want you to think back to when you were younger. Were there any female artists that were pop culturally very popular that you thought were attractive, but their music was just eh?
Olivia Newton-John.
Okay. Think about it this way. Olivia Newton-John gets a lot more attractive when you're listening to her music or watching Grease and you go, mute. Right?
True.
Okay? Kurt Schilling is Olivia Newton-John.
Okay.
You heard it here first, folks. Kurt Schilling is Olivia Newton-John. That should be a t-shirt. I think when we start merch, Kurt Schilling is Olivia Newton-John. Oh my god. Oh, okay. All right. Well, as we wrap up this week's episode, so you and I are still going to run next week, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So we will be here next week for Memorial Day Sundays. We continue to break down the week in baseball. I have started going through and doing my MLB Morning Minutes again. I had taken a little bit of a mental health break. I had some stuff I had to take care of. I haven't been feeling the best. But those have started going again, so I'll be getting those up multiple days a week. Mondays and Thursdays, it probably won't happen because I work earlier those days, and I just don't want to do it. But we also do now have a Twitter page that Craig has so gracefully decided to man for me because my ADHD only allows me to do so many things at once. And it would not be functional without him because I've been meaning to do that since we started the show. And I will post a link to that up on our page. I think we're trying to work out making sure that we can both have access to it. Right. I think I want to try and see if we can get a vanity tag for that as well because it's just like Craig and then a bunch of numbers right now. So I think we want to work on that.
Okay.
But we do have that going. Don't forget, you can follow our YouTube channel, The Winter Meetings. And you can always catch all of my podcasts that I do through my Twitch page, First Generation Dad. My parenting and mental health podcast, First Generation Dad, will be coming back on Valentine's Day, Father's Day. That Will Morgan, who's in chat earlier, he is my co-host for that as we talk about all things parenting, mental health. And so definitely be ready to check that out. You can catch last year's and the first year's season, that was just me, on Spotify and Google Podcasts right now. I have not gotten that podcast on the iHeartRadio yet. I'm going to make sure I'm doing that with the start of this year. So that is coming soon for that. But definitely check those things out and support. I will be on tomorrow night at Sports Report at 10 Eastern and Sports Report After Dark at 11:30 Eastern, talking all things baseball and the intersection of sports and the human condition tomorrow night. So please follow those and check those out. You can go to the Sports Report page on Facebook for more information. Craig, any final thoughts tonight, young man?
Yeah, we lost a giant in the writing world in Roger Kahn. He passed away at 101 years old.
I did not see that.
Yeah, and
wow.
I met him back in '87 at the Cardinals Giants NLCS at Candlestick, and to me, he was like my Babe Ruth. I mean, I read all his books. He was so gracious, and he was a giant in the baseball world for writing baseball. He was the biggest advocate for baseball. He was a baseball fan. Wasn't ashamed to say he was a baseball fan, and wrote from his heart. Anybody Google Roger Kahn, pick up any of his books, you will not be sorry. So he had written there's too many books to list. But any of them you cannot go wrong with at all. But rest in peace, Mr. Angel.
Wow, that's well said. I had not seen that, so that's a lot. I will close. Faith Hill, Trisha Yearwood, Martina McBride have all agreed to support Winona as she completes what was supposed to be the final tour of the Judds, because Naomi Judd had succumbed to her mental illness. And to see the women of country coming together to support Winona so that they can do that final tour for the Judge.
Beautiful.
Why do I keep saying Judge? The Judds pay honor and respect to what Naomi has done, as well as what Winona has done. I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Mental health is a thing that I spend a lot of time talking about. And so for those of you that don't know that, please, you can check out my page, First Generation Dad. I'm always sharing a lot of different things. People struggle even when they're not saying it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had to learn, and that I think, depending on where you came from, it's a little harder to learn, like it was for me, than some others, but it's okay to ask for help when you need it. And check on your friends, especially the ones that struggle more. Make sure they're okay. Offer to take them out, help them with something just to kind of, break them out of that funk and help them know that they're loved, because, a lot of people face struggles that we don't realize. And I'm definitely one of those where I'd rather listen to your story than read your obituary. So for anybody watching, if you're struggling, I genuinely mean this. Find somebody to talk to. It's okay. I've been there. June 4th marks 17 years since I almost took my own life. And this year I'm commemorating it. I'm going to be getting a semicolon tattoo on my right hand. And I'm putting it there intentionally because I want it to be seen. I want it to be a conversation piece. Because we need to be having more conversations about mental health, especially in today's world. Everybody's stressed out. The connection in social media age has definitely pushed the need for the importance and the emphasis of mental health into the forefront. But please take care of your mental health. And anybody that tells you shouldn't, or that it's a weakness to do so, is probably part of your problem. And they should be.
Okay.
But as we wrap up today, for my amazing co-host, Craig Newton, and our friend and co-host, Stefan Weaver, I am Seven. Thank you for watching Winter Meetings. And, for those of you that catch us after on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, or through our various listening platforms, please definitely make sure to check us out on our Facebook page and connect with us, as we would love to talk with you. Love to hear ideas for things that you want to hear our take on, what you think we got wrong. We've been married long enough to know that we get things wrong, and it's okay to tell us. Just don't tell our wives, because they don't need more ammunition. Thank you, everybody, for checking us out, and have a good day.